Neville Goddard, Power of Awareness, Chapter 13, Acceptance. Man's perceptions are not bounded by organs of perception. He perceives more than sense, though ever so acute, can discover. Man's perceptions are not bounded by organs of perception. He perceives more than sense can discover. However much you seem to be living in a material world, you are actually living in a world of imagination. Boom! Right out of the gate. How easy is it to understand that? Let me see. If I've been focused on the outside world all the time in my entire life, and someone says I've been living in a world of imagination this whole time, whoa, what are you saying? What does that mean I'm looking at right here? It's a very difficult pill to swallow, but I think he's going to make his point. However much you seem to be living in a material world, you are actually living in a world of imagination. The outer physical events of your life are the fruit of forgotten blossom times, results of previous and usually forgotten states of consciousness. They are the ends running true to ofttimes forgotten imaginative origins. Whenever you become completely absorbed in an emotional state, you are at that moment assuming the feeling of the state fulfilled. If persisted in whatsoever you are intensely emotional about, you will experience in your world. Remember these key things right here. Intensely emotional about. Absorbed in an emotional state. These periods of absorption of concentrated attention are the beginnings of the things you harvest. It is in such moments that you are exercising your creative power, the only creative power there is. At the end of these periods or moments of absorption, you spend from these imaginative states where you have not been physically, to where you were physically an instant ago. In these periods, the imagined state is so real that when you return to the objective world and find that it is not the same as the imagined state, it is an actual shock. You have seen something in imagination with such vividness that you now wonder whether the evidence of your senses can now be believed, and like Keats, you ask, was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music, do I wake or sleep? Very, very amazing sentence. I must repeat. In these periods, the imagined state is so real that when you return to the objective world and find that it is not the same as the imagined state, it's an actual shock. Now that is literally when you go in and shut the door and you're going into your breathing and your I am, and you're calm, and you're now in the imagining of what you desire. You're at the end, preferably, walking back into your house after the honeymoon. And it starts to feel real after this meditation or after this point. When you come back, it's a shock. It should be a shock. It should be shocking that you're here. Okay? When you return to the objective world and find that it is not the same as the imagined state, it's an actual shock. You have something in imagination which you have seen something in imagination with such vividness that you now wonder whether the evidence of your senses can now be believed, and like Keats, you ask, was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music, do I wake or sleep? Now it's a wonderful place to be, to realize, wait, hold on, was that just imagining? Did I just imagine that? Didn't I get a call from you the other day and you said, oh no? Oh, well, your imagination is becoming very vivid. You want that. You want to go down that road. This shock reverses your time sense. By this is meant that instead of your experience resulting from your past, it now becomes the result of being in imagination where you have not yet been physically. In effect, This moves you across a bridge of incident to the physical realization of your imagined state. The man who at will can assume whatever state he pleases has found the keys to the kingdom of heaven. The man who at will can assume whatever state he pleases has found the keys to the kingdom of heaven. This is why I think in Neville's having been a dancer. And by the way, if you haven't seen it, look on YouTube. There's footage that has surfaced of Neville in the 3D. It's not a lecture, but it's of him dancing in a movie called The Gay Divorcee, 1934, Fred Astaire. There's a scene later in the movie, and it's Neville in a dancing group, and they're, you know, in those movies they're all dancing as like teams of dancers, and in the movie it looks as if at first glance there's a pair of people and a pair of people. When you go find this video, there's several on the YouTube now. The first one looks like him at first glance. Then another source said that the second gal and guy are Neville, but in actuality, I believe it's the third. Incidentally, there's blonde hair on him, which is what I said in a previous video. But it goes so fast. It is so blistering fast. But one of the testimonials was a gal and a guy that put the testimonial, I think it might have been on Facebook. Or no, it's in YouTube comments. I believe it was. And his mom remembers watching those movies, and his mom knew who Neville was. So she would point him out when that came across the screen when the movie was on. So we have some testimonial of Neville, and there's actual image of him on celluloid in the movie. So wow, it blew my mind. But back to this. Oh, my point. Him being a dancer, and I learned this one also about Mary Tyler Moore before she got onto the couple shows that she was on. If you don't remember her, you might look her up. But she was also previously a dancer to her acting career. Mary Tyler Moore Show and etc. And it seemed that the people that were very fluid with their taking on as a dancer, and my wife did a lot of that, which is wonderful. I love her use of imagination. It blows me away how vivid her imagination is. She can drop into a movie in a second and be, hey, no, you know. But how a dancer moves through a routine. I used to play music. I used to play in a band, and I used to play the song. And the moving through the song is different than if you're dancing your way through a song. When you're dancing your way, you're putting yourself in the 3D world, in the physical. You're having to take movements, the actual movements, and that the most creative thing that resulted was the people that became actors and actresses from being a dancer were very good at it, like Mary Tyler Moore. If you look at her in her show, or ever watched that as a kid, she was very, very good. She was very entertaining, very comedic, very funny. Neville had the same skill to go in his early, I'm guessing it was from his teens to his 20s, to be in that profession before the Depression, when it was in higher demand before the Depression, and in that movie would be after the Depression. But he was able to go into these movements and to move with this concept of dancing. So that flexibility to take on a state, if you will. Dancing is definitely different states of movement, for sure. These people who did that early and young were able to fluidly take themselves mentally later, like actors and actresses do that easily. It's the same for someone like Neville, was able to travel through states easily. And those of us who didn't have that growing up as a dancer or putting on plays for the family, I remember looking at a video of Mick Jagger, and he was making a comment how when he was a kid, in their house, they used to have them put on entertainment for the relatives. So when you were a kid in his house, you'd have to put on some kind of skit, some kind of play. You'd have to act. You'd have to perform. And it's that early performance that ingrained it into him. And you can see what he is on stage today. Even he's still doing it. But when you do it early, you get that better use and flexibility of your imagination. It usually yields very positive results later. But for those of us who didn't grow up like that, back to that, we have to make a concerted effort to get into that. We have the same capacity as anybody else. So we have to get a little bit more effort to use our imagination to flow into states. So you have to put the effort in. We have to put a little bit more work in. The man who at will can assume whatever state he pleases has found the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And I'm here to tell you, all of us can. All of us. The keys are desire, imagination, and a steadily focused attention on the feeling of the wish fulfilled. A steadily focused attention on the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That's it. Desire, imagination, and a steadily focused attention on the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Doesn't sound too difficult. If you want the keys to the kingdom of heaven, you can turn off this video and you could turn off everything there is in the world and get very focused on desire, imagination, and the ability to focus your attention. That's the three things. He just gave you the answer right there. If, like me, you didn't grow up as a performer and you don't have that fluidity of imagining things, using your imagination, not crazy. Maybe we are crazy to other people, of course. But if you don't have that skill set, then we need to take some effort and put it in. We need to put it in. How do you learn to play guitar, right? How do you get to Carnegie Hall, right? Practice, practice, practice. The three things. To such a man, to such a man, any undesirable objective fact is no longer a reality, and the ardent wish no longer a dream. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. On the previous point about being flexible with your imagination and getting these skill sets, desire, imagination, focused attention, I go from reading these chapters, and it's very much what I absolutely love. It's all my desire, all my imagination, and it's my focused attention on the material and finding a way to convey that to you, like right into you. That's my goal. That's what I'm on about, doing this. It's my goal to pierce right in there. When I get in there and I dig some dirt and I put the seed right in there and I just put the dirt back over it, I know it's fertile ground. So I get in as fast as I can, as with enthusiasm, with appreciation and gratitude. I get in there as fast as I can. With the way I talk, with the way I do this, with the way I understand it. Everything I'm doing on this end is just to get into your imagination state and plant that seed that, yes, you can. But then I finish this work, then I go back into my day, and I meet people that aren't thinking this way. They aren't talking this way. They aren't acting this way. And they say some things, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. Whoa, what happened? What happened? Everything was going just grand when I was reading this chapter and interpreting and breaking down. And what's out here? It can be shocking sometimes. So you have to keep your attention. Now, if you do run across some things that are going to be blinding you from your objective, turn them off. Go a different direction. Nope, not going that way, not going that way. I'm going this way. This quote, I think, is when you, and it was Malachi 3:10, when you really realize, when you really realize that you have that capacity to do anything, even as Neville did, with his ability to imagine lovingly for others, persuade himself about them, and they go off and succeed in that which they wanted, and you do it for yourself, and you start to see this blossom within you. You see these tiny successes. You start to build them. It will be this quote that you should think about. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Malachi 3:10. I really believe that when you do it and you see those blessings of heaven, your self-concept is here and you want to be here, and you make the impression onto your subconscious, you marry the masculine with the feminine, your conscious with your subconscious, you give birth to a son, and you all of a sudden start to experience that this new objective reality, this one here. You look at YouTube, you look at your friends, and they're not the same people. The videos don't look the same anymore. You've made the detachment. You woke up in that new objective reality. This one moment, you're going to realize that you've been poured out a blessing, and there shall not be room enough to receive it, because you're going to get on top of this. You're going to be in control of this conscious creative self. This new objectified self now has the opportunity to go, wait a minute, I like this, I like that, I want to eat this, I want to travel there, I want to drive this, I want to marry her, I want to marry him. All of these opportunities that there shall not be room enough to receive it. That's the blessing. You're just waking up to your own blessing. The windows of heaven may not be opened and the treasure seized by a strong will, but they open of themselves and present their treasures as a free gift. A gift that comes when absorption reaches such a degree that it results in a feeling of complete acceptance. What I was just talking about. The passage from your present state to the feeling of your wish fulfilled is not across a gap. There is continuity between the so-called real and unreal. To cross from one state to the other, you simply extend your feelers. Trust your touch and enter fully into the spirit of what you are doing. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. Assume the spirit, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and you will have opened the windows to receive the blessing. To assume a state is to get into the spirit of it. To assume a state, you're here and you want to be here, is to assume the spirit of it. Your triumphs will be a surprise only to those who did not know your hidden passage from the state of longing to the assumption of the wish fulfilled. Oh my gosh. To assume a state is to get into the spirit of it. Your triumphs will be a surprise only to those who did not know your hidden passage from the state of longing to the assumption of the wish fulfilled. They're going to wonder, where the hell did that abundance come from? Why does he seem untouched? Why does she seem like she's unaffected by being dumped or breaking up or getting fired? Why does she seem not affected? Because she's making those changes. She's making the changes from the career that's a dead end to the career that's going to be her ultimate fulfillment. What she loves to do. She's going through the changes. And you're looking at her from without, from out here. You're looking out, you're looking in from without, and you don't understand anything. But it looks like a miracle's happening because she's unaffected, doing whatever she wants, and all these things are improving in her life. What gives? Be the example. You don't need to be concerned about telling anybody anything except for you being the example. Assume the spirit, the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and you will have opened the windows to receive the blessing. To assume a state is to get into the spirit of it. Your triumphs will be a surprise only to those who did not know your hidden passage from the state of longing to the assumption of the wish fulfilled. So simple. Sounds so simple, and it is. The Lord of hosts will not respond to your wish until you have assumed the feeling of already being what you want to be. For acceptance is the channel of his action. Acceptance is the channel of his action. Acceptance is the Lord of hosts in action. The Lord of hosts will not respond to your wish until you have assumed the feeling of already being what you want to be, for acceptance is the channel of his action. Acceptance is the Lord of hosts in action. Man, what a great chapter. Man, okay, so Power of Awareness, Chapter 13, Acceptance, opening quote, man's perceptions are not bounded by organs of perception. He perceives more than sense can discover. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. There are some wonderful pieces in there. Let me know if you got anything out of that, if you've made a change, if you've accepted, if you've imagined. How's your imagination working right now? You know it's working because you're here. You know it's working. Let me know how it's working. Okay, we'll talk to you in the next video.